where to begin for what they've been talking about on Dan Patrick and on the top of the hour NBC Sportscast. First of all, Chad Morris getting the hire at Arkansas. How do I look at that? A, another coach linked to the Tennessee job that went somewhere else. B, a guy that, despite the fact that Jeremy Poplin came on this show last week, sports talk show host over in Tulsa, and when it looked like Mike Gundy might be coming in, I started connecting out to him. Mike Gundy might be the coach of the Vols, obviously. And he speaks glowingly of Morris. I still think here's a guy with a 14-22 record. I think I said before a couple of days ago 13-22, but 14-20, big deal. 14-22, okay. He was the offensive coordinator at Clemson, we'll give you that. But he was the offensive coordinator at Clemson, when they were losing to Steve Spurrier. When they were the offensive coordinator at Clemson before Clemson wins the national championship. Before they're ranked number one in the country again this year. That's Chad Moore. So he's in high school 2009. So I'll have some thoughts on that here in a little bit. I don't think it's the end of the world. This isn't a hire like you said, boy, would have liked Dan Mullen to come to Tennessee. Boy, would have liked Chip Kelly to come to Tennessee. It's not one of those. But still, it's another coach that goes somewhere. And here he goes somewhere in the SEC. Hello, everybody. I'm Marky Bilson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-Cities sports fans. The name of the program, Tri-Cities Sports Now, 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. Also on Facebook. We're doing Facebook Live, so you can stream. You can see this handsome face of mine wherever you are. I've been called adorable, okay? Yes, by women, by beautiful women, I've been called adorable. I am Axl Rose without the tattoos. In my younger days now, I'm just, a stud muffin. That's all there is to it. But the point of the matter is, we're on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, and we own the Tri-Cities, primarily because we give the visuals and the sex appeal on this show that other sports talk shows simply don't by broadcasting on Facebook Live at the current time. Dustin Dopriak also adds sex appeal, but you won't be able to see him because I get jealous. And he will be coming on bottom of the hour to talk a little bit more about the coaching search and just the whole Tennessee situation. He writes for SEC Country, writes for a lot of sources, covers Tennessee, covers Pitt, covers a lot of teams, all this. Dustin will be on bottom of the hour. Had some very nice things to say about the Tennessee program, as a matter of fact, in a publication out of Nashville recently. But anyway, that's one thing. Be talking a lot of sports. So many things went by the radar when we were just focusing so much on the Tennessee Volunteers. Got things like, the Eli Manning situation, certainly. Boy, what a flop that was for Ben McAdoo to bench him for one game. And I realize the Giants won a grand total of 2 games. But what a flop that was to bench him, end that streak for nothing. And then, they fire McAdoo. And for good reason. I guess the key card doesn't work. And he gets sent back. And then, Manning gets sent back into the starting lineup this past week. I mean, why did they break the streak? It was just... And we're running the promos here on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. Colin Coward, who follows my show, talking about, don't mess with the Manning family. Is that what Phil Fulmer is doing now? Is that what the Tennessee fan is doing? I mean, think about this, folks. If Schiano was the Manning hire, among others, then are you messing with the favorite son of Tennessee, Volunteers football, by saying that he can't come? I don't know. I'm not really willing to go off and say that because, to be brutally honest with you, I don't think Schiano was a very good hire. I don't think Schiano should be coaching. I think Schiano probably knew about what's going on at Penn State, and I think that the people involved with that are trickling out of the coaching ranks. Of course, then you have Jay Paterno, who is former quarterbacks coach at Penn State. He's on the board of trustees at Penn State. Some people never learn. Before I get to Marky's monologue right here, where I call out the media, one last thing I got to tell you. Listening to the Dan Patrick show talking about beer. That's right, beer. And if you have beer to sell, please remember 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. We're not Tom Taylor here. And I would gladly accept that. We'll gladly move your alcoholic beverages. But what I would point this out is he was talking about Rolling Rock and drinking. That was always one thing. I used to work at a radio station in Latrobe, PA, where they used to brew Rolling Rock. I remember once prepping for a high school football game. The Blairsville Bobcats. There you go. Shout out to Abda Torre, okay, head coach of the Blairsville Bobcats. I used to call these games, play-by-play announcer, and as I prepared for the games, before heading out to them, I remember they used to have 23 cases of Rolling Rock beer, because it's Latrobe where they used to brew Rolling Rock beer, in this side room, to give away. That's sort of to the lucky listeners. Not for us to partake. It wasn't chilled in any way, so, But that was always one thing to remember about Rolling Rock. The other thing, though, I don't think I'll ever touch it again because Anheuser-Busch bought Rolling Rock, and then they shut down the brewery in Latrobe. And there's another brewery that's picked up there, but it actually moved from Pittsburgh, and so, just you remember where you're from. I mean, you don't want to necessarily do... What's a company in East Tennessee that went out of business here and or was driven out of business that you wouldn't necessarily want to keep around, that sort of thing? I'm trying to think of, a business that closed up shop and you say, nope, no more. That factory went out. I'm not supporting that anymore. That's sort of the way I feel there. You know what else I feel about? This is Marky's monologue. The media in Tennessee, East Tennessee, are a bunch of homers, except for me, of course. And a bunch of, there are others, there are exceptions, but I've talked about this. I think there's more homerism, more biased fanboy reporting that doesn't tell the truth in East Tennessee than in any of the markets I've lived in, and I think it's 15 or so. Of course, I've been in East Tennessee for like 30 years or so, but on and off, I will point that out. I don't know, maybe it's unfair for me. I didn't really have a chance to truly dissect the media of Harlingen, Texas, of that area. To tell you the truth, I thought that area kind of ignored the sports teams in that market. I'm not sure that we do here. But I really have felt that this whole Tennessee coaching search has led itself to a lot of homerism, a lot of fanboy reporting. I try to listen to the talk shows. Obviously the ones on this station, from the national perspective, which is going to be objective. When Colin Cowherd says something right, Colin Cowherd doesn't have a dog in the hunt for Tennessee. Colin Cowherd, it doesn't make him happy or sad if the Vols win or lose. He's going to tell it like it is. That's what he's paid to do. And he said some things, I think, that are overwhelmingly pro-Tennessee. I think that job could be the Michigan of the South. I don't. I think there have been I think the SEC is too competitive. Michigan of the South would imply that it would be one of the two best programs in the country. I think that that's going to be Alabama and Florida for the foreseeable future. And I don't know how Tennessee can really compete because they don't have the players in the backyard that Alabama and Florida and Georgia and really all of the states in the SEC, with the exception of Mississippi and Arkansas and Kentucky, possibly Missouri. Of course, I've said my thing where there are 4 D1 FBS programs in Tennessee and 33 players in the NFL from the state. There are 26 players from Missouri, but there's no other, FBS program except Missouri in the state of Missouri. So if you want to play locally, if you don't want to leave, and you're a good football player from Missouri, where are you going to play? And they do have Kansas City and St. Louis. Those are population centers. So I've said that. But yeah, the media around here, homers, I remember back in the national championship season for Tennessee, forget who it was who covered the Kingsport, the Vols for the Kingsport Times-News. At that time, the Kingsport Times-News had a beat writer cover. It wasn't just the AP. Finances were a little different back then. And I remember a special, and I've said this, and I don't mean to, I could look the guy's name up if I wanted to, but I remember there was a special, it was on, we don't have WKPT anymore. Listen to your old grandfather Marky tell you all about Channel 19 here, But there was a pregame show before the national championship game against Florida State I remember watching, and, the local media came out, and, hey, let's interview the Kingsport Times-News Vols beat writer, and he continually referred to Tennessee as we. Now, that is journalistic sacrilege. But I'm getting this kind of Homer reporting, and I think that we had it displayed a little bit on this show, and I get a lot of the writers of the area on this show, and I hope that you think that I've called them out when they have been homers. Case in point, John Bryce on Friday. And if you remember when he was on here it was around 1:30, and we weren't sure just yet who was going to be named the new athletic director at Tennessee. And there was some talk it could have been an assistant in the athletic department. There was some talk about Phil Fulmer. Originally, it was reported it was going to be, I'd have to look the name up, I did not remember. It was going to be John Curry's former assistant, was going to be the AD. And then Bryce came on, good reporting, it's going to be Phil Fulmer. But he didn't just say it's going to be Phil Fulmer. He said every time when referencing Phil Fulmer, the Hall of Fame coach Phil Fulmer, the Hall of Fame coach Phil Fulmer. Phil Fulmer doesn't need you to preface him as the Hall of Fame coach. We know who he is in East Tennessee. We don't need that, But it's also, our Lord and Master, Jesus Christ. It's like putting him on that pedestal. And to continuously refer to Fulmer as the Hall of Fame coach Phil Fulmer. And that's why he's going to be able to find a good coach. That makes Bryce out to be a fanboy when you can't just say, actually, there's a lot of talk that former Tennessee head football coach Phil Fulmer could be the new coach or the new AD at Tennessee. When you're the Hall of Fame coach Phil, why can he find a new coach? Because he's in the Hall of Fame, Does he reference John Majors all the time as, the Hall of Fame coach John Majors? I guess Majors could also be a player, too, Reports came out after Fulmer was hired by national sources that he had kind of sabotaged John Curry and his efforts to get a new football coach at Tennessee. The Hall of Fame coach Phil Fulmer supposedly did this, allegedly. Two national sources are reporting this. There was then a local source that came out and said, no, nothing to see here. And by the way, Fulmer has denied it. Of course, it was also said at Friday, 5 p.m. hour on the Chuck Oliver Show here on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, where Oliver said that Fulmer was the best liar he had ever met. Fulmer could actually lean in and tell you something. Make you really think he knew what, no, it's really like this. Leaves the room. And then you say, wait a minute, I was there. That's not what happened. Fulmer would lean in and tell you that it was something. Damning commentary by Oliver. But again, what does Oliver have to lose by telling you this? He's got to cover all the 14 teams. He's got to cover them all objectively. And for the most part, Chuck Oliver does that. Anyway, there was one reporter that came out and said, no, nothing to see here. Fulmer didn't sabotage, blah, blah, blah. You know, the national report's got it wrong. Who do you think it was that reported that? That's right, John Bryce. The Hall of Fame coach, Phil Fulmer. So you got two national reporters, and you got one guy for Gridiron Now who, in his very talk, brands himself as a fanboy. Who are you going to believe? Really? I mean, if you're a Tennessee fan, I mean, if you really want to, people, that their business is to tell the truth, or their business is to appeal to Tennessee fans. Who are you going to believe? Anyway, just to recap why Phil Fulmer is now the athletic director at Tennessee. And I was engaged in an online conversation with a Tennessee fan earlier today about this, and I realized that, you know, when you're talking about Curry and Fulmer being the AD, you know, right now, John Curry, had he not been let go, Mike Leach could be here. In here being East Tennessee, I mean, not in studios of 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, but Mike Leach could be here. Now, you know, it's looking like Jeremy Pruitt is the front runner. Kevin Steele's been interviewed twice. Boy, this just sounds like another Carl Torbush, doesn't it? Former Liberty defensive assistant coming in. Now you've got a coordinator, another assistant from an SEC program, defense assistant, not offense, defense. This sounds like another Carl Torbush hire. Torbush is 11-22 at ETSU. By the way, Kennesaw State, who we all remember, they brought back football, or I guess Kennesaw State started it up for the first time, but, you know, they started up the program same time as ETSU did. We all remember the 56-16 game, 26-15, what happened. Kennesaw State's 12-1 this year. Kennesaw State's in the Elite Eight of the college football playoff, of the FCS playoff. ETSU went from 5-6-16 to this year 4-7. They regressed. And still Carl Torbush is saying, no, what are you going to do after the JUCOs leave? Why don't you just say this, Carl Torbush? And we could actually kind of, you know, respect this conversation. I don't like JUCOs. I wonder why they're JUCOs. I wonder why they couldn't get into college in the first place. You know, maybe that's one of the things that you do. Maybe you say that. And if you said that originally, then things would be well. We've got Maria True here. Hold on, she's on Facebook Live right here. We got right here. Yes, we've got. Here we are right now. She's interrupting the monologue here. What do you got here with the red? No, it's fine. Dustin Dopirak. Here's about. See how, you know? Wouldn't you love this lovely lady to come to your business and promote Jet Broadcasting makes your business soar, as we hear right there. You've got that red piece of paper. Were you going to give this to me here?
Yeah, Marky.
Okay, what do we got
Today's
here?
the day.
What? Oh, today's the day. And they read some people. Okay. But no, I'm looking at this and I say, with Fulmer, the reason he's hired, it's very simple. The coach that he hires, unlike John Curry, because of the Tennessee fan base, you're going to believe the coach that Phil Fulmer hires. Phil Fulmer could bring in Gus the Mule, and most of the Tennessee fan base is going to accept that because Phil Fulmer presented it to you. John Curry, he could have presented Mike Leach, and and it's my business to be skeptical, don't get me wrong, but there would be that, here's the guy who allegedly locked guy in a closet, and he's who's replacing the coach who played Brett Kendrick with a concussion. Is that who you really want, despite Leach's record? Fulmer can sell you a second-string coach. Fulmer can sell you a coordinator. If, started this coaching search, that John Curry had come, so the day after the season ended, and said, here he is, the next Tennessee Volunteers head coach, Jeremy Pruitt. Here he is, Kevin Steele. You know what would have happened? You would have said, as a Tennessee fan, that's all it is? We got coordinator? Yeah, and you would have said we, too. We got a coordinator. Tennessee didn't get Dan Mullen. Tennessee didn't get Chip Kelly. Tennessee didn't get John Gruden. That's who Tennessee got, a coordinator. And you would not have been happy. You probably wouldn't have rioted in the streets, but you would not have been happy. Phil Fulmer, whoever, like I said, Gus the Mule could come in and the Tennessee fan base will accept him. That's why Fulmer was hired as the head coach. Or excuse me, as the athletic director. Forgive me, as the athletic director. There are some that think he might be the head coach. Certainly if who he hires doesn't work out and he's still the athletic director at the end of 2018 and the Tennessee record appears to be going the way it did this past year, he might feel that he could step in. Barry Alvarez did that for a bowl game with Wisconsin. Remember that? Barry Alvarez did that for one game. So let's see what happens. Anyway, Dustin Dopirak joins me at the bottom of the hour. Quick note, when we come back, we've got the sports update local on 1420 NBC Sports Radio, Tri-Cities Sports Now.